When the divorce papers were finalized, my husband Aaron walked out of the courthouse grinning as if he'd hit the jackpot. Technically he had. He took the house, the cars, the joint savings, and even most of the furniture. My lawyer kept apologizing, explaining that the prenup I'd signed years ago left us little room to negotiate. I walked away with 2 suitcases and a quiet promise to start over. Everyone assumed I was devastated. And yes, part of me was. 12 years of marriage reduced to signatures and stiff handshakes felt like someone had erased a decade of my life. But Aaron had overlooked one thing, the one thing he thought had made him successful, the thing he couldn't take. As I packed the last box from the house, Aaron leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me like a stranger trespassing on his turf. "You'll be fine," he said casually. "I'm resourceful," I murmured. It sounded like an insult disguised as a compliment, I added. He simply shrugged as I closed the box. Aaron always believed he built his tech startup empire entirely on his own. He loved telling anyone who would listen how he grew a small software firm into a multi-million-dollar company. What he never mentioned was that, in the early years when clients were scarce, I worked double shifts as a nurse just to pay our bills. When he doubted himself, I stayed up until 2 a.m. rewriting proposals that were on the verge of disaster. I quietly reviewed every spreadsheet, every contract, every line of code he refused to handle. But Aaron liked to believe success had only one name, his. A week later, I moved into a modest apartment across town. The walls were thin, the kitchen tiny, but for the first time in years, the silence felt like peace instead of loneliness. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. A message from one of Aaron's senior managers, Jenna. "I know this may be inappropriate, but are you okay?" I stared at it, surprised. Jenna had always been professional, almost distant. "I'm fine," I replied. "Aaron just announced a major restructuring. Departments are confused. He says he's simplifying operations, but it feels off." A tight knot formed in my stomach. Aaron had always been confident, sometimes recklessly so, but he had never handled operations alone. "I'm sure he knows what he's doing," I typed carefully. Jenna didn't respond, but her words lingered. That evening, while unpacking, I found an old flash drive tucked inside a notebook. My breath caught. It contained years of financial forecasts, risk assessments, and strategic planning files, the work I had quietly maintained because Aaron refused to deal with the details. Memories flooded back. Late nights, sacrificed weekends, moments when he boasted to anyone who would listen that he did it all himself. Now he had the house, the cars, the company, but not the skill to run it alone. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my own life. I returned to full-time hospital work, taking extra shifts to keep my mind busy. Still, updates about his company trickled in. At first, small things, delayed meetings, confused employees, sudden policy shifts. Then, growing worry. One evening Jenna called. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she said, hesitant. "Aaron fired the entire finance team. Said they were slowing things down. Now he's personally approving contracts." I gripped the counter. "That sounds risky." "It gets worse," she whispered. "He just signed a massive overseas expansion deal. Nobody here thinks the numbers make sense." I remembered reviewing those same contracts countless times. Aaron rushed into deals that looked impressive on paper. I had always been the one to slow him down, to point out hidden risks. But now, the safety net was gone. It wasn't my company. Not my responsibility. A month later, an unexpected email arrived from Aaron. "We need to talk about some old financial files." "Call me." I stared at it, then deleted it. He had chosen this path himself. 2 days later, the news broke. Aaron's company had suffered massive losses on the overseas project. Investors panicked. Partners pulled out. His empire was shaking. Late that night, there was a knock at my door. Aaron stood there, disheveled, suit wrinkled, eyes tired. The confident man from the courthouse was gone. "I know I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "But I need to ask. The forecasting models, the internal reports, where are they stored? The ones you used to handle?" I studied him. For the first time, he sounded lost. "I gave you everything in the divorce," he added quickly. "I assumed those files were company property." I walked to my small table and held up the flash drive. "These?" Relief flickered across his face. "Yes, without them, I can't trace where the projections went wrong." "Investors are demanding answers," he admitted. I paused, recalling. Every night I had built those models, teaching myself financial software after hospital shifts because he refused to hire consultants. "They're personal backups," I said slowly. "Created on my time, my work." He swallowed hard. "You took everything, Aaron," I said quietly. "The house, the money, the company. And you said I'd manage because I was resourceful." He lowered his eyes. "You were right," I continued softly. "I am resourceful, but resourceful doesn't mean forgetful." The room fell silent. He stood there, realizing the one thing he truly needed was the one thing he had never valued when he still had it. Months later, I heard Aaron's company filed for restructuring. We crossed paths in the hospital hallway. He looked older, quieter. "I misjudged you," he said. "You didn't misjudge me," I replied calmly. "You ignored me." I walked away steady, unshaken. Sometimes losing everything reveals who was truly holding it together.